Welcome to everyone. We're excited that you're here. We are going to be talking about seniors in transition is the focus of this webinar. My name is Mark Shep. I'm Executive Director for ALOA, and I want to say a few things about ALOA first. ALOA stands for Adult Lutherans Organized for Action, but mostly I want to talk about our tagline, and that's encouraging and equipping congregations for older adult ministry. So let me just share a screen I have now. Hang on, I got to find my website. Now I can't find it. I'm going to stop that and close some things because I got too many things cooking and it just gets confused. I want to say a couple of things while I'm doing this. If you're an attendee, I want you to go put your mouse over the screen, my face essentially, and what you'll find is at the bottom there's a Q&A and there's a chat. Both of those are important for you to give us information and for us to give you information. There should be some information already in the chat box. In fact, Chris, I'm going to ask you while we're waiting, if you can put any contact information you want them to have in the chat box, and then hit return. That'll come up into their chat box, and I'll be able to send that out afterwards. But same thing for everybody that's on as an attendee. We're interested in where you're from. If you have questions, they should go in the Q&A box. So let's keep connecting that way, and we'll make sure that we're getting the questions answered that you guys have. So now I'm going to go back and I want to share again my window. Now that's better. Here we go. Okay, that's the one I was looking for. So Chris, you should be looking at my PowerPoint.
I do see that.
Okay, I'm going to get it started. That's actually not what I wanted to show, actually. Why did I pull that up first? I got to stop sharing. I was looking for my web page. My browser, post attendee, keynote, malware. I'm just going to go to, I guess I'm going to go to Firefox. Now, can you see, Chris, the Facebook post for ALOA? Does that show up?
I am seeing that.
Okay. That's the first thing I want to talk. That link you can find in the chat box is to our Facebook page. I try to keep this fairly up to date with just good information about the older adult world. I track a lot of places and I put a lot of articles into a file I have, and then just keep feeding that here to give folks a chance to look things over that they find interesting. I've shifted now, Chris, to the ALOA webpage. Yeah, is that what you're looking at?
That is what I'm seeing.
Okay, so here's the webpage for ALOA. A couple things to share with you. Again, top of the page, encouraging and equipping congregations for older adult ministry. That's what we want to be about. We want to be practical in what we do. So we have a lot of resources we hope to give you, and also an overarching vision of that in the congregation. Our focus will be congregations. Scroll down, there's this link called Blueprint for Older Adult Ministry. If you click on that, I'm not going to do that now, but click on that, that takes you to another page that makes that image bigger, and then gives you also a YouTube link that I walk you through about a 4-minute video through what we talk about as a blueprint for congregations to, in a simple way, walk through how you can build a stronger older adult ministry. Most places have some kind of a fellowship group, and many are, that's a great place to start, but many aren't getting much beyond there. So this gives you a sense of how you might do that. We'll be talking about this. I have a ALOA 101 webinar that I do occasionally to walk you through this more fully. The next thing down is click to sign up. I want you to know if you're on this webinar, we're going to put you into our email system. Now, if you don't want that to happen, please in the chat box say no email. That's important for you to tell us that. Otherwise, if I don't hear no email from you, we'll just put you in this system. And one of the things is you're in the running for a free consultation for older adult ministry in your church. We're trying to provide some very hands-on, show-up local things. We do some of this online, but one a month that person's going to receive for their church. We show up for a day, our expense. You pull whatever leaders you want together to work on this, and then we do an outreach event in the evening. We're just trying to get the word out about what we offer. So, and then the webinars we have, there's at least a couple a month that we're trying to get now through November, and then we'll schedule again January. So check that out. And then the very far left side are just lots of other, that's kind of where we put our main menus. So you need congregational help, key resources, the partners that we work with, events, etc. So check all that stuff out. We want to be helpful to you and practical. We appreciate feedback, and make sure, again, as you're listening to Chris, I'll introduce her just in a second, but we want you to get the questions and answers you have. So if you have questions, type them in that Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom window. I'll see those and then ask Chris in a timely manner how we do that. You got links on the chat box from me. Chris, I think, put some contact information for her. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and introduce Chris. Chris Carson works out of Northern Cal, and she's going to say more about her own work specifically, but I got introduced to her about a year ago at the LSA conference that we had, and was introduced to this program a long time ago, actually, out of your church, Bethlehem in Santa Clara.
Santa Rosa.
Oh, Santa Rosa. It is Santa Rosa. I don't know why I can keep that straight. But it's one of the best programs I've seen. And I have, what I'll share later is it got the most response. So these folks in that parish put it together and said, hey, this is good enough to share it with the church. And so this is one of the ways we're trying to help make that happen. So Chris, why don't you take over, tell a little bit more about yourself, and away you go.
Okay, great. So as Mark has introduced me, I'm Chris Carson, and I'm the program coordinator for Health Ministries of Sonoma County. And it's a group of put together by parish nurse community within the Lutheran churches here in Sonoma County, and developed this program, and we have taken it much more broadly. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that in the presentation itself. But it's been very well received, and so I'm very, very pleased to be a part of it and be able to bring this to you through the ALOA website resource tool. So thank you for being here this morning, and with that, I think I'll go ahead and move into the PowerPoint. And please, just as you have questions, please post them, and Mark will alert me.
Yeah, I can see it now. Thanks, you're good.
You need to get into presentation mode here in just a minute. There.
Yep, it's all good. You're good.
All right. So as I mentioned, I'm the program coordinator for Health Ministries of Sonoma County, and we have two programs. The one where I'm going to be talking about today is called Seniors in Transition, which I will be calling SIT. And we realized after we named the program that SIT might not be the best acronym that we're trying to encourage for seniors, but anyway, it is what it is. And then at another time, I'd be happy to share with you some about the new program that we're launching on supporting aging seniors. So some background on SIT. As I said, it was developed by the Health Ministry Committee, particularly, as Mark mentioned, of Bethlehem Lutheran Church in Santa Rosa. And they presented it to their own members about 3 times during that kind of 2009-2010 period, and had such good reception within their own congregation and friends of congregation that they elected to try and expand that. And so in 2011, they invited 3 additional ELCA congregations in Sonoma County to participate, and then building from there, then we're able to obtain a Wheat Ridge grant in 2013. And that enabled us to hire a part-time coordinator, which was not myself at the time. But as a result of that, as I mentioned here, we did require matching funds for our Wheat Ridge grant. And so we have continued to ask congregations to provide modest supportive funding. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in terms of what we're offering here today a little later. But so why should you within your faith community consider offering a seniors in transition program? we have found that, as it says here, that faith communities are just uniquely equipped to really help seniors to live their lives to the fullest. And really, the approach of faith communities tends to be more holistic and is a place where seniors are willing to open up about the stresses that they're feeling. And so it's a compassionate center for this kind of work to occur. And we feel like it's really important for seniors to address what can be a challenging thing for them to talk about. None of us like to talk about what declines we may be experiencing, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whether it's social. And so having a supportive environment to do that is really important. So the goal of the program is to empower seniors, really, so that we can all explore options and make informed choices for alternate living situations, and also learn about in-home care, and do this before a crisis hits. You or your friends, your family may have experienced that, sometimes crises happen before we're ready for them. We're a heart attack, a stroke. And all of a sudden, in that moment of crisis, you have to make decisions. Well, the goal of this program is to at least get some general background planning in place before. So in this supportive environment that you've created within your faith community, then one of the things we do is explore stereotypes of aging. You may ask, why do we do that? Well, one, it can be kind of an opening for people. Stereotypes, while we don't always like to acknowledge them, they can be humorous, and they're out there, and so we need to acknowledge them, and we need to say, but it's not that doesn't have to define me. I can make other choices. So then understanding the challenges and putting your values and your future decisions on paper really is helpful. And it's helpful for you to have conversations with your families and loved ones so that they know your wishes. Again, so a program overview, we do this as a multi-session small group ministry. Typically, we ask folks to set aside 2 hours. And often, it may only take an hour, hour and a half, but we ask them to set that aside because it allows time for conversation and sharing. So again, it's comprised of 6 to 8 group sessions led by a facilitator. And then some of the discussions that are in the program are first bringing out the challenges and opportunities. And we found, and I think you'll find when you run this, that as seniors, we're really, really good about understanding what the challenges are, not so good about understanding what the opportunities might be or what our hopes and dreams might be. So we'll include some tools that we use for helping to bring out some of those, the more positive potential outcomes. We learn about community resources for seniors, about placement options. And what do I mean by that? I mean, what kinds of senior living situations are available in your community? Are they, multi-levels of care? Are they independent living? Are they, small group homes? All of these things are available, not all in every community. Again, a big challenge for seniors is downsizing. So I decide to move. What do I do with all my stuff, and how do I make a decision about it? So that bringing in someone to talk about that and help people walk through that is helpful. Spirituality and aging is an area that we ask the pastors within the community to address. And then, ultimately we ask these seniors to try and pull together a transition plan, a plan A and plan B. And I have to tell you that, frankly, I would say not 100%, but 95% of the folks, when they're going through this, plan A is I'm going to stay in my own home until I'm hauled out with my boots on. But we say that's fine. So understand then, what do you need to do to make that tenable? And then if Plan A is no longer viable for you, what would your Plan B be? And then as a part of that, we have invite speakers and site visits. So again, this serves members of the population within your congregation who are in their senior years, and also their friends should be invited to attend. I have a note here, it is not designed to have adult children present. And why do I say that? We have found that seniors and the adult children of seniors have very different life goals for their parents. So seniors want to maximize their independence, and the adult children of seniors want to maximize their parents' safety. So because the goals are so different, we find that it's a little bit stifling to have both groups in the same room. But we have encouraged, for example, when we have site visits or speakers, to invite adult children to attend. So what results have we had? We actually facilitated 35 programs within Sonoma County faith communities since 2012, both within the Lutheran communities, but also Episcopal, Methodist, Presbyterian, Unitarian, and these have been very well received. So some of the things that we hear from participants, or that they were successful in developing plans, and that they shared those with friends and family, and also that they realized within themselves a positive change in their own attitudes towards future life transitions. And finally, oftentimes we have seen a supportive community developed within those individual faith communities that continues on beyond the 8-session program. So while we all think that we already have supportive communities, these small groups can be very, very, very strong opportunities for faith communities to grow and develop. So let me stop here a minute and see if there's any questions. Mark, has anything come in?
No Q&A yet. Yeah.
Okay. So this is our experience. What if you want to implement a seniors in transition program in your community? How would you do that? We offer a flash drive that has about 26 programs on it, files, and it helps walk you through how to develop a program within your own community. And let me tell you a little bit about that. Here you see what are some of the things that are on the flash drive: program description, how to begin, some helpful hints, different things I'll share, some resource lists that we've put together, participant handouts that kind of take you through the curriculum, some sample advertising for publicizing your program, again, resource bibliography, some assessment tools, role descriptions. So should you want to expand the program, we can tell you how we've done that in terms of having coordinators like myself, facilitators, and different things if you want to offer this outside your own congregation. And then some evaluation forms, because it's always important to step back and say what's working well and what's not. Finally, a program summary, and probably most critical, the Train the Trainer manual, because that is a PowerPoint that will take you through exactly what it takes to put on a program. So let me just tell you a little bit about the Train the Trainer, which as I've said, is one of the most important aspects. So in the agenda for the Train the Trainer, we actually suggest that you do a hands-on exercise. We provide that. We go through the nuts and bolts of setting up a program, getting it organized. A secondary exercise which helps work with some of the challenges in terms of bringing out opportunities, hopes, and dreams. Again, some helpful hints, and then takes you through exactly what you can expect to receive, and then some wrap up. So just nuts and bolts. How do you know whether or not your community might benefit from it? Start with an assessment of your community. You know, could this be not only a program for your congregation, but could it be an outreach ministry within your community? Decide who will provide the leadership. Sometimes it's helpful to form a committee to review the curriculum. Again, selecting times and dates, plan your publicity, and the most critical thing that you would need to do as an individual, because it's something that is unique to each community, is identify what community resources are actually available within your community. Contact staff of senior living communities, care agencies, and that. You'll find that they are very willing and anxious to come and speak to seniors and to provide education. When we make those contacts, we let those individuals know that this is an educational program, and we ask them not to kind of overly sell their own program, but to provide information about the programs in general. Again, there are a lot of speakers out there on downsizing, on all kinds of topics of interest to seniors. And we have found that within our community, there are resources such as senior catalogs that are put out by the county or by other folks, newsletters and brochures. So those are some things that you would need to search out. And then finally, some helpful hints. Local clergy, community directors are key partners for success. And again, as in any program, individual invitations tend to be the most effective way to get people to participate, especially the first time. After that, a lot of times word of mouth is what's brought us back to some of these faith communities. Again, open participation to friends of seniors. And again, think about timing. We have found that for seniors, either a mid-morning 10 to 12 or a 1 to 3 afternoon time is best, because most seniors don't like to travel in the evening. Again, we do limit the class size, and that's just to allow everyone to have an opportunity to speak. So that's just some information about how to develop your program. As I said, we make a flash drive available, and in terms of funding, we do ask that you consider a $50 donation. It covers the cost of the flash drive, it covers our mailing costs, and we also provide a tool called Go Wish Cards, which if you're interested in that, I can tell you a little bit more about that. So I'd just like to acknowledge that, again, the Health Ministries of Sonoma County, we work under the auspices of Bethlehem Lutheran Church, which developed and is implementing the programs. And we have, over time, received a lot of generous support from both Wheat Ridge Ministries, Episcopal Senior Communities, as well as the Bethlehem Foundation. So we've been very blessed, and we believe very strongly in the value of this program. So thank you Mark, for giving me time to just share a little bit about this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, appreciate that. No questions now. If you could stop sharing your screen, what I'd like to do is that poll that you asked about before.
Right.
I want to just do the poll, and you should be seeing a poll on your screen. Poll in progress. There's, I think, 6 questions, and they're just broad questions about health ministry, senior ministry, who's leading it, makeup of your church, etc. So I'm going to give you some time to do this. Please do participate in this so we have a sense of what's going on. First questions are helpful for Chris. The very last question is helpful for me. How'd you find out about the webinar? I just like to know what's the most effective tool to get the word out about this thing. So I'm going to give you a chance to do that. And Chris, while they're doing that, is there a Reader's Digest thing you could say about the second of your programs? You talked about the supporting seniors. Put you on the spot a little bit.
Yeah. Let me just. So this is a new program. We're just in the midst of launching it. It was something that was requested by folks going through the Seniors in Transition program, and it because of the target audience, it's designed to be a much briefer program, but also to encapsulate a few additional things. So it's composed of 3 2-hour sessions. One called Beginning the Conversation, where we talk about what are symptoms and signs that maybe your parent or loved one needs some assistance. We talk about living arrangements, which is very much one of the topics that we address within the Seniors in Transition. And then a new part of this program is planning for the future, and in addition to kind of what the living arrangements might be, what are the financial, legal, and health implications. So we bring in some financial planners, a senior attorney, an attorney specializing in senior matters, and that to help with that section. So again, this one we feel is appropriate for both faith but also secular groups.
Right.
And we don't limit the size as we do, because we're not having it in a format. But again, it looks ahead to a time when someone that you love may no longer be able to live safely, and helps you to start conversations. It's a not only is it a hard conversation for seniors to have, with and among themselves, but it's a hard thing for families.
Yeah.
So talking about, what's the best way to do that. So.
Well, you have to have a conversation about making that one of these webinars down the line. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. We've got some folks who haven't voted yet, but we just need to keep moving. So here's, I'm going to share the results. So do you have either health or senior or neither? So we got some with senior, some with nothing. We have managed through a health, education, or, I guess I misspelled social ministry team. I didn't correct that for last time. Or others, so it's something else. Faith community, what percentage is 55 and older? So this is a group of folks that is varied. Some have only 15%, which is in many congregations these days quite low. And then more than 50 is almost typical of many congregations in my experience these days. Some are advocating for seniors. So far, none of the responders have that. That would be your supporting seniors workshop would be a good one for congregations in that boat. Would you be interested? Yes, high interest in that. And then how'd you find out? So Facebook and District and Synod e-news. I'm trying to see what is the best way again to get word out about this. All right, I'm going to stop sharing this. No Q&A at this point. Let me get rid of that screen on my window. I'm going to share one thing on my window with my PowerPoint for Seniors in Transition. And so, Chris, you should be seeing my PowerPoint.
I do.
And, let me get that to the big screen. I'm going to share what I did, and even though I may be a very poor example of how you described it being done, I still want to do it because I'm an educator in the Lutheran Church, have been for years, 5 different congregations, 35 years of ministry. I taught a lot of classes, and I think I'm a pretty good teacher, but I'll tell you, I have never had the response to any class I taught as strong as I had to this class, in large part because it's well put together, but also the subject matter is critical to these folks. They're really were looking for this kind of thing. So this is what I did. I did it on I knew I was a short timer in this congregation, and it was in St. Paul Lutheran in Melrose Park, a very large congregation that over the years became very small, but predominantly older adults, 75 and above, really, for the most part. And I did it Sunday morning because I wanted to get the most people there during the stretch, because I knew this was a one-off event. If I was going to do this in a parish that I knew I was going to be in for a long term, I would do it very differently, but I wanted to get some people through it. So we talked about this being the important decisions in later years of life. I shared some of my history in this area. We had just gone through, this is my parents, this is Becky's parents, and where they ended up. Both of Becky's parents, we had to have a lot of work with them because they put this decision off and put it off and put it off. the mother had Alzheimer's. The father was very unhealthy over the years, and so as a combination, they were just in some rough shape. And we just had just gone through that as we want to help people make more proactive decisions in this process, because Becky's folks were very reactive and just had a lot of their options taken away because of that. So when are you ready? They had said stay on the farm as long as possible. Stay in the house. You know, that's, as you said, Chris. That's the default. And then this was our son-in-law's parents. Both have some issues. The husband had the most issues because of an accident back in his earlier life. And so the wife was the caretaker. Well, the son kept asking, just checking, what about, what's your plans for, how you're going to live when you need some help? And their response was, well, know when it's time. Well, then the wife gets Alzheimer's. And now all of a sudden the caretaker isn't caretaker anymore. And so the point being, if you put it off, the options really reduce. So we tried to aim for more intentionality in the process, proactive versus reactive. And it's not a cookie cutter approach. Everybody can do their own thing. This just simply helps in the process. And so week one was introduction. And we had 2 weeks then after that of administrators coming in from two of the most used facilities from our population, where most of our folks ended up going. They came in and we said to them, as you said, Chris, it's not an advertisement for their place, but talk to us about what you think we should be thinking about in this process. And they were very, very helpful. And then in the end, they invited us to come. And so we went to both of those places. They provided a free meal, a grand tour. It was a good experience. And then we gave a view from the other side in week 4. What that meant was we found folks who had been through the process, and both those who had done it well and proactively, saying, I'm glad I made the decision. We like where we are, and it was a good decision. And one gal came to us, a woman who had put the decision off, and catastrophic events happened in her life. And in one day, all her options went away. And she said, I'd like to come and talk to this group so that nobody else goes through what I went through. I want to help them be proactive. And then we talk about spirituality kinds of things, faith questions, what happens as we age with our faith. We had someone come in from home care, and what are the resources available there. We had a lawyer come in on week 7 for documents and medical care. And then week 8 was they actually shared their plan A and plan B. And in our cases, as you said, Chris, the vast majority were trying to stay where they were, and that's great. But they had at least made some decisions. So this is the first class, and after the first class, well, here's what we did: looking for answers to these questions. What's the best and worst case scenarios you're thinking about if you think about, okay, I need some help. What's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? And back up again on that one. So we spent time talking about that, really the whole session. And then after the first session, I had one woman come up to me and said, Mark, I am not ready for this class. I can't. I won't be coming back. Well, okay, that's fine. We don't force anybody through it. But the implication of that for me was, wow, a congregation has to keep offering this thing over time, because people aren't ready always at the right time. So this is not a one-off event. As you said, Chris, your congregation, when you were first doing it 3 times in a row, people invite you to come back. It's the kind of thing that has to be done multiple times over time, because there's people coming up through the pipeline, and they're going to be ready at a certain point and not ready before that. So my advice is keep offering it. Then we did these field trips. We mentioned those before. We went together. It was a great experience, and people really that had never been in them with this view in mind. They might have gone to visit somebody. They just said, I have a whole different vision of what's available for me than I had. And my father-in-law was one of those. His view of what the options was fueled by his experience as a pastor visiting in a small town nursing home with the classic long hallway and people in wheelchairs sitting in the doorway with nothing to do. I mean, he just said, don't put me there. Well, Pops, there were all kinds of options. He had no clue about what they were. So all of a sudden the world opened up for him when we showed him some different things. And then faith life, God's call comes early, it comes late. We talked about some of the scriptural examples of faith. And then what changes in later life with our faith? What remains the same? How does a faith life factor into the decision about where you want to go? Maybe you want to make sure that it's a place that provides some faith services. Those are all decisions to think. And then we didn't have adult children there, but we at least talked about them because it's a pretty important thing. As you said, it's exactly right, Chris, in my experience. Two very different agendas. And, you can't not have them involved. They want to be involved. And sometimes, and this is true even for us, I'm 65, I turned 65. We had our first intervention from one of our children when we moved out. We moved from Chicago recently to California. We were going to drive. I was driving a truck. My wife was going to drive the car with grandkids. And one of our sons said, no, because Becky's health is not good. So they said, we're driving with you. So sometimes adult children do see things that the adult parents don't. And so, you have to kind of work that whole thing through. But lots of things to think about in that regard. And we just simply talked about it with the participants who were there to help them think through, how do I want to engage this conversation? And my aunt was one of those people in the group, and this class was 2 years ago. She's now just within the last 2 weeks having that conversation with her adult children, in large part, I think, because of this class. Saying, she said, I wouldn't have done it without some nudge to think that through. So talk early and often, learn about each other. Distance is a factor. They do see things we may not. It's your stuff. Deal with it. The whole thing about stuff. Oh man, we had a lot of issues with Becky's folks. Wow. And then actually the adult children are seeing themselves and they're learning. Oh man, yeah. Do I want to give my children the same experience you're giving me? I mean, that whole thing. And then we had home care come in. We did the plan A and plan B. And then lots of folks have been doing their own visits. So we had a very good experience. And again, I had more folks comment to me about this class than I have had about any other class I've taught. And I taught a lot of them. So I just want to affirm folks to give this a whirl. There is a lot to, let me stop sharing. There's a lot to work through. They give you lots of resources, and it's extremely helpful. I don't have any questions. It's a quiet group. So unless you have something else, Chris, no sense keeping people on if we're done.
No, I would just say, Mark, what you said, we found as well. Most people, at least the generation that we're talking to now, see their view of what's available is what today would be called skilled nursing.
Right. Exactly.
And that is, there are many more options out there today for seniors than there were even 10 years ago. Exactly. And the other thing that I thought that you did and that we try and do as well is go visit these places as a group. Because again, when you do that, it becomes, it's a learning experience and it's not a hard sell.
Yeah.
And so, individuals, if they want to go back later or they want to check out a different one, they're after doing it once with the group, they're much more comfortable to make that ask. Yes, and
as I recall, you mentioned this already, that some of the tools you give are evaluative forms for, okay, what should I look for when I go to a place that you wouldn't even think about? And so he gives some, again, helpful tools in that whole visiting process as well.
Okay.
Right. Hey,
well, thank you. And thank you for inviting me, Mark. And we'll talk more and maybe do something on the supporting aging seniors.
I hope we can do that, Chris. Thank you again. And
okay.
Thanks for participating, folks, and we hope it's helpful. Watch for an email from me that tells you about when the YouTube recording of this is available and the slide deck. Good? All right. Blessings, everyone.
All right.